Please welcome Diane.
Thank you. It's great being here with all of you today as we think about innovation from the context of what we want to do within our utilities. And what I want to share with you today is how we're infusing innovation into the DNA of our culture at Clean Water Services. So it's going to be somewhat of a case study of why Clean Water Services does what it does and why it thinks the way it does. So we're in the Tualatin River watershed. How many of you have ever visited Oregon? Great, perfect. So we're the west side of Portland, so we're in the sister county of Portland. So we're home to Nike, we're home to Intel, and the large industrial sort of complexes within Oregon. You can find them here in Washington County. Beautiful watershed. So Clean Water Services manages all of the assets within this watershed, from the coastal mountains and all the way to the plateau of the Willamette River. So it's a really beautiful space to work in. So we provide the regional services for 13 cities as well as for the unincorporated areas of Washington County. So the traditional utility model that we're all very much grounded in and experts in is the traditional POTW model. We're very utility-centric, so our span tends to encompass those things that we can do as a utility, and we're very regulatory compliance focused. And hence, we're looking at our pumps, our pipes, and our plants, right, through asset management and what we can do to meet the permitting requirements. And they're getting more complicated, MS4, TMDL, and MPDS permitting. So as you're on your current pathway for water quality, what you find is things are getting more and more complicated. We started at primary, secondary. We're now moving into biological nutrient removal to control nutrients on our water bodies. And many of us are doing tertiary treatment for water reuse. And the question becomes, what's next? And at Clean Water Services, because of the issues of the TMDL, we call this as being on the slow march to reverse osmosis. And clearly that doesn't add a lot of value for the watershed itself, and it would be extremely expensive. So we currently have this regulatory compliance sort of driver, and that's the big cog, that big wheel that's driving capital investment, O&M, and public engagement. And what we find is affordability is starting to sink, our citizen satisfaction is sinking, as well as the financial stability of our utilities. So when you step back and you look at the system of what's going on, we're finding that we're having declining water resources and the ecological system services that could be provided. We have increasing urban demands for this water. And we, quite frankly, have this extraction, use, waste, disposal sort of societal values and our business mindset, coupled with this wastewater or water treatment disposal type of utility mindset, which drives us to this thinking of minimum necessary for compliance. And for some of us, and especially in the Tualatin River Basin, this strategy no longer works for the watershed, and we're on a trajectory for an ecological problem. So we began thinking about what is it going to take to become a utility of the future and to create a new roadmap where we're uplifting the ecosystem services that are available to a watershed. We're reducing demand on the resource itself and increasing the ability to recover resources from the wastewater. So this is the center point of innovation for Clean Water Services. So as a utility for the future, you begin looking at things differently. So you begin thinking about, well, how do I be like, how do I cross like Alice in the Wonderland going across the mirror to think about something differently of this new world of a utility of the future? And what you find is that resource recovery is found at all avenues of treatment if we would just capitalize on it. So as you move from this traditional utility model to this model of a utility of the future, where you're looking at collective impact with partners and alliances, when you're looking at a transformative business model that involves entrepreneurship, and you're also looking at the underlying watershed itself through ecological uplift, again, you find yourself needing to utilize innovation as a significant tool. So what innovation means to Clean Water Services is that it's change that unlocks new value propositions for our citizens. And it's found in the core of people, processes, and systems. So we started, in terms of scale of innovation, from business process improvement. So everybody can do this level of innovation. So you're thinking about efficiency, you're thinking about optimization. Clean Water Services utilizes the Lean Six Sigma approach to help us do that, to find those points of change. So we learned to do more with less. So back in 1997, on the far left of the chart, you can see we started off with 9 employees per 10,000 residents. But seeing the changes that we needed to make within the utility to deliver more services to the community and looking at the financial trajectory we were on, we went through a very focused business process reengineering. So that in 1999, we ended up with 6.3 employees per 10,000. That was an incredible downsizing of the organization. And from 99 till today in 2018, this is still paying dividends. We're still at less employees in 2018 than we had in 1997. And we're delivering a much more expansive set of services to the community. So we all know financial performance matters. So the red line is the trajectory we were on in terms of expenditures. And the black line below it, after BPR, is where our current trajectory is. And we expanded the services that we provided to surface water and also to watershed health and resource recovery. So you can imagine if we did that on top of the trajectory we were on, we would be way up in terms of the resources that we needed for the organization. And the introduction of Lean Six Sigma is paying more dividends. So we did this controlled financial resource expansion. So we did continual rate increases up until 2012, and then we've been able to reduce the rate increases down to more of a 3.5, 3.4%. So it's this continual gradual increase of the rate base that it's providing the resources that we need to make investments. And it's all pointed at having competitive and affordable rates for the citizens. And you do this with a very focused enterprise-wide strategic framework that starts in linking the mission, the vision, and the values of the organization. In our case, the 3 pillars that we're working within for healthy watersheds, to have an effective clean water services, and to create vital communities. And that little red circle, that's our guiding principles or our pillars. Innovation is part of who we are. Innovation isn't a program, it isn't a department, it is a piece of who we are and the choices that we make at Clean Water Services. So we moved to this more enhanced business model. So we started off at pipes, pumps, and plants and public health. You have to be there. You have to deliver on that value and those services to your community. But we increased it to include watershed health because we were not going to be meeting the TMDLs for thermal loads, utilizing the plants, pumps, and pipes model. And now we're into resource recovery. So it's included this very different look at the watershed and the questions that we ask ourselves in terms of the investments that we're going to make. So it's what would Mother Nature have us do? So every investment that we make in the watershed, there has to be impact to the environment and also to utilize the creativity and the innovation with the talented team that we have to have them incubate, look at entrepreneurial innovations. So our scale of innovation has expanded to new intellectual property because within our full-scale plants, we have this great testing bed and testing ground for innovation. So we've created intellectual property to recover phosphorus differently and partnered with a company who is who creates equipment to remove phosphorus, to do phosphorus removal. So we have an alliance with them to expand the use of our wash strip patents. So we invest in research projects and we also invest in these big new ideas. So research is embedded into every capital decision and operating decision that we make. So this is the round circle of the areas in which we're innovating on, and they all have to do with sustainable and regenerative solutions within a water body for a utility. So it's everything from connecting people with nature and partnerships and permitting innovation all the way to alternative energy generation within the utility. So I could talk about all of the different innovation things that we're doing in this circle, but I think I'll talk to you more about today. What did it take in terms of a culture, in terms of a utility, to make something like this happen? Because all your staff will tell you they're buried pretty deep under the existing processes and paper. They can't even fathom how they're going to create these new value propositions. So it's really a mindset shift that goes on within a utility. So our departments were really good at working in silos. So how many of you have departments that work really well in silos? And as we started talking about silos, the team reminded me, these aren't silos. These are cylinders of excellence. Think about it. They're very proud of what they do. They're very proud of the expertise that they have. But you have to infuse a different way within an organization. So we are infusing this way of working in a series of interconnected hubs. So we're working like an ecosystem within the organization. So we're fostering multidisciplinary teams that are thematic and project-based. They're interconnected and networked, and they're all focused on creating value. So you have to deal and manage with the cultural aspects of working within a silo. So the perfect time for clean water services is to do this is the changing of the employees. So we're moving from the baby boomers, which I'm one of them, fondly one of them, and moving towards the Gen X and ultimately the millennials and the Gen Z to prepare them with the things that they're going to need to work in this very different work environment. So we look at transformative organizational development so that they understand how the need for change deals with the active resistance and the passive resistance. We move them to a readiness for change state, which starts the feelings of compliance. So they're saying, okay, we can do this, to actually moving them towards enthusiastic support. And that's at that point when those teams are ready to perform. But it's really this shift to value creation, because right now they're focused on work effort. So the number of lines I have to clean, the number of pretreatment inspections I have to do, it's very work-oriented, it's very siloed and very linear. And they have to move towards this outcome-focused, a collaborative feedback loop system, and also fostering relationships and partnerships. Well, how do you do that? Well, you have to think differently. So the wastewater utility, we no longer talk to ourselves or to the public simply about the wastewater we treat. We link that to the resources that we produce and the additional value streams that we can provide them within a community for safe water, but also water for irrigation and also energy. The teams are now developing new vocabulary and ways of thinking. So they're talking about what it means to have value for an economy, for a community, for the environment. So they see their business processes as enabling this value creation. And at the very bottom, they understand it takes human interaction, it takes information, and it takes thoughtful organizational design. So they're focused on awareness, readiness, alignment, and collaboration. And they do their business processes to deliver value. This is what the team created themselves. So it's no longer management telling them they need to change. They're actually organically developing this because they're ready. So source control. How many of you have source control, pretreatment programs? So do you think they're linear and siloed? Do you think they're resistant to change? Yeah, okay. So our source control group is embracing this new way, and they talk about the current status, which is a reactive approach, and moving towards this future status of a proactive approach. That the teams, the engineering teams that are doing planning and implementation of projects on the ground, they're thinking differently from the current linear status where they come up with an idea, they create the CIP, and then they deliver it, and then they look at the outcome for the watershed. They've created this circular value centered approach where they're constantly scanning to make sure that the projects they're delivering are actually delivering value to the environment and to the citizens. So this means we have to have a new, different data system and data structure. So the team has come up with aligning all the way from the landscape, where it's the land use, the land and natural resources, all the way up to what they need for collaboration processes for sensors and for data visualization. So this means, yes, we're investing in state-of-the-art technology, but it isn't just technology for technology's sake. It's to move the utility forward so that we can provide more resource recovery. We don't build treatment plants in 20-year increments. We're in constant construction at the wastewater treatment plants. By doing that in this incremental approach, you can take advantage of all of the technology that is available. Because imagine you build your plant 20 years from now, your technology is already outdated. So, and its capacity that was unused in many cases. So this more strategic approach for capitalization is paying a lot of dividends in terms of changing our treatment facilities to facilities of the future. In terms of stormwater, we're creating these ecologically sensitive urban development solutions. We're getting urbanization to the tune of putting 3-story houses on 6,000 square foot lots. Are you kind of there in terms of density? And some of you in larger cities have more density than that. So let me see if I can tee up this video. So this is an area that just opened up for development. And rather than imposing the design layer on top of the environment, we deeply understood what it was that the ecosystem needed. So we're creating solutions that are ground-based, that work with the development community. So they're actually building these facilities for us. And so we're working within the land to create solutions. So we're working together with partners. It's no longer Clean Water Services saying what Clean Water Services does. It's all of these partners that talk about how we're catalyzing and working for the watershed together. We have 55 miles of watershed that we have restored to help us with future TMDLs. We're recovering resources to create products that are sold in the local grocery store. That's Clean Water Grow. And we're also connecting people with nature and with clean water so they understand that the choices that they make directly impact what's happening out there on the ground. And this is our Fernhill site. Mm-hmm. So what I have next are a series of videos, and it sounds like I'm running out of time, but I have 4 videos that you could take a look at. The first video we can show later is about how we rethink what it is that wastewater treatment is and the natural environment. There's a video on unlocking innovation for the source control team. If you're wondering how would you unlock innovation in a team like that, I have a video that we could take a look at later. And also, how do we do integrated planning differently within the Clean Water Services? So it's no longer just regulatory compliance and generalizing and starting a capital improvement program. It's actually creating an integrated plan. So we invest in things like dams, busting down dams in the watershed to make sure that the fisheries can survive. So it's alternative ways of capital investment. And then we have this video that we created for the Clean Water Institute. So we're actually working in China now to help with the issues that they're facing with water quality by bringing the knowledge we gained at Clean Water Services. And there's a whole video that talks about the innovation at Clean Water Services. So if you're interested in any of 4 of these.
Hello, I'm Bill Gavi. I'm General Manager of Clean Water Services and Executive Director of the Clean Water Institute.
Maybe do that later for all of you. But thank you.
Great, thank you. Round of applause for Diane. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Bill Gavi. I'm General Manager of Clean Water Services and Executive Director of the Clean Water Institute. Clean Water Services was born out of a desperate situation in our watershed. Since that time, through innovation and partnership, the water in the basin has been transformed into a cleaner resource than it has been in many, many decades. We host a huge Intel presence, Nike's world headquarters. The economy could not be more vibrant.
Our philosophy for integrated planning is to maximize the natural system as much as we can, because that provides a lot of benefit, not only on the environmental outcome, but on the social and economic outcome. And then we adding the reliability by using the gray infrastructure as well.
Our watersheds department really has developed the expertise around how to design and create these natural systems so that they work. We have a group of very high quality professional personnel here who enable us to really move forward on these innovative approaches with a good scientific and ecological basis.
We're looking not only at riparian corridors, but we're looking across the entire landscapes, the riparian, the uplands, the wetlands, the areas up above the streams and the lakes of the watershed. And those are the areas that, when integrated together in a thoughtful restoration package, bring broad-scale watershed health and resiliency.
We are water architects, but we work at the junction of architecture and environment. That's our role on the team, is to think about the spatial opportunities that present themselves to our clients. We look at where people are, what the pattern of the urban settlement is. We analyze the networks that are in place and the systems that could be enhanced so that the technological portion is working. And the city then can operate in relationship to its territory, to nature.
Many of these green infrastructure approaches can save millions and millions of dollars. I think that the key, at least internally, is how do we coordinate these efforts to create the best catalytic effect that we can get across the entire watershed. That means understanding how wastewater processes work, how other clean water processes work for storm and those types of activities.
We discharge the treated wastewater from the plant. It goes over some rock beds that were specially engineered. And in that process, there's a biofilm growth of ammonia oxidizing organisms that grow on the rocks, and they remove the ammonia by oxidizing it to nitrate. This is the first application of this technology in the United States.
Having a wetland component between the steel and concrete to buffer the chemicals and the processes that go on before you deliver it back to nature has been a tremendous benefit to water quality. We're just picking up on what Mother Nature has been doing for millions of years.
Systems can be imposed from the top or they can grow from within. The Chinese idea of wu wei, not making but growing, is something we can learn from, something we study, something we, wherever we are, embrace.
So we have the whole suite of smart systems and to help us making decisions and protect the environment and the community. The basic level is your physical infrastructure. So this could be a pipes or pump station or like a creek or river, so there where you want to control your system. The second level is really the sensors and control. So that will be your flow gauges and your water quality sensors and your continuous monitoring devices. The third level is about the communication, because when you have a sensor, you have a data, how do you transmit it to your workstation so you can see that real time, so you can make real-time decisions. So the fourth level is really having that visualization, the software that you are able to use. We also have just launched a watershed wiki. It's an objective dashboard and people can really review and understand the performance of the watershed and your infrastructure.
This is a real-time control stormwater system, and it's important because it mitigates the adverse effects of land use changes. We have a camera so I can actually see what's actually happening out here. Everything you see here is on a web dashboard through the Internet of Things, so anywhere I have internet access, I can log into this system and see its performance trends. So all the information is there and it's real time. So you can see instantaneously what's actually happening.
You need to be able to measure things you set up. It's a process then of monitoring to understand the effects, all the while feeding back, all the while into further research and smarter action.
We do monitoring for all of our 4 wastewater treatment plants. We monitor stormwater and we monitor the Tualatin River watershed. And the better we can understand it, which comes from a lot of data, the better we can develop those kind of natural systems and make them work for us. So we're constantly sending data out to wherever it's needed.
We now have a total of 4 unmanned aircraft systems, and the Watershed Management Department is using them to go out and monitor the growth of vegetation that they've planted along streams and riverbanks.
With remote sensing and LiDAR, we're able to get more of a complete picture. We're able to see how tree canopy has changed on our projects based on the activities that we've performed out there. The technologies that we're using provide a near real-time feedback to the project managers.
Having that data to tell that story is really crucial for all of our partners, and to be able to continue to work with landowners on the scale that we need to.
Clean Water Services have 40 years of operation maintenance experience. We are able to help you to guide your operation maintenance program as well.
So we have nearly 800 public water quality facilities, and the majority of those are vegetated. We came up with this idea to develop this training to help the contractors and the property owners realize the purpose of these facilities, how they're to be maintained, why it's important that they're maintained, and what they do.
When we get rainfall, we immediately have an opportunity to do something good with that water, or to go in the other direction and pollute it or make it worse than it was. And so the point of the training is to make sure that the folks that are right there managing those facilities understand the importance of their role in the process, and then can actually train their people to do the right things so that the facility continues to work and continues to function the way it was intended.
When we do planning, we really look at a lot of information in order to develop this plan just for the city we are working with. So what's the hydrology conditions? What's the water quality condition? What's the culture of this city? Each project is art and science together.
I think the biggest success is how quickly Mother Nature comes back. We see beaver ponds throughout the entire basin. We see the wildlife that comes with it throughout the basin. We see songbirds, we see waterfowl that hasn't been here in years coming back and thriving in these areas. I think they're probably the best indicators of large-scale success.